Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Career Ready by Mohawk Alumni webinars. We're going to be covering cover letters and resume writing today. My name is Lindsay Diamond, and I'm an alumni coordinator at Mohawk College. I'm so happy that everyone's able to join us today, and I look forward to learning aside everyone today. So I know we have lots of material to go over today, so let me introduce Sherry Wade. Sherry is a career advisor at Mohawk College and is certified in advanced resume writing. She has over 10 years experience in the employment service field and is very well versed in resumes and cover letter writing techniques. Sherry, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to hearing from you. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for that warm welcome, Lindsay, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. As Lindsay mentioned, I'm a career advisor here at Mohawk College, and I am part of the student and graduate employment team. So I'll get started. Oh. Sorry, bear with me, I'm trying to, there we go. Okay, so just to go through our agenda, so today we'll cover information about the student and graduate employment team, resume formatting, value proposition, job posting analysis and resume parts, simple branding and design skills and techniques, and we'll discuss steps to writing a compelling cover letter. The objective of today's presentation is to help you feel more confident in editing and creating a resume using winning techniques, and to teach you how to proposition yourself as a valuable contender, and to also provide you with examples of acceptable resume and cover letter formats. So we'll get started, and I'll let you know a little bit more about the student and graduate employment team. So we work with students and alumni to support with the development of employability skills. And there are a number of services that you can access through our department. For one, I'll talk about resume critiquing. So we offer resume critiquing every Tuesday from 1 to 3 p.m. And we also offer one-on-one appointments. We typically operate between the hours of 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. And we accommodate email, phone, or Zoom appointments. And how you can go about booking an appointment is through Career Ready. So that's careerready.mohawkcollege.ca. When you log in, you can log in as a student or an alumni. And there are steps to resetting your password if you no longer have access to Career Ready. But you can, when you do log in, you'll see a blue circle at the bottom right-hand corner of the page. And when you select that circle, you can follow the prompts to scheduling an appointment with either a career advisor like myself or one of our career coaches. Another thing I want to draw your attention to on Career Ready is our careers tab. So if you select the careers tab on Career Ready, and sorry, I don't have this written on the slide, but it's really important because we also have a number of job postings that you can access there as well. We have thousands of employers who post positions through Mohawk College, and these are employers who specifically want to hire our students and graduates. So you can access those postings on the Career Ready site as well. And the services that you can access through us are resume writing support, cover letter support, support with building e-portfolios, preparing for interviews, learning how to network, job searching techniques, and consultations that could be career exploration, or for individuals who are thinking about upgrading their skills, things like that. There is some support that we can provide around that area too, okay? I wanna start with a quick fact. So employers scan your resume for approximately 7 seconds before deciding whether or not they want to continue reading. So with that said, and that was taken from Career Professionals of Canada, with that said, it's very important to include relevant facts that add value. Okay. Now, your resume is much like a marketing tool. So it is important to incorporate good marketing principles into your resume. Now, according to Career Professionals of Canada, and I'll reference them again, there are 4 key marketing stages that recruiters will often go through when deciding whether or not to select your resume to continue on in the hiring stages. So the stage 1 is to capture the reader's attention. And so at first glance, the recruiter will scan through your resume to determine if there are any eliminating factors. So at first glance, is there anything that they see on that resume that tells them that they do not want to continue reading it? Stage 2 is evoke interest. So the reader does that 7 to 10 second review of the resume to decide whether or not they want to continue reading. And this is when they'll search for keywords and technical skills and phrases and things like that that capture their interest and tell them that, okay, this is a resume I want to keep reading. The third stage is to stir desire. So this is where the employer will do a more in-depth scrutinization of your resume. So they'll look at specific details such as dates, places you've worked at, positions you've held, and things like that. And then if you're successful in passing through each of those 3 stages, the 4th stage is when the employer will actually act. So they'll decide to give you a call and perhaps do a telephone screening or call you in for an interview. Okay. Now, to let you know what some of the common eliminating factors are. So these are those factors that will, either allow you to move through the stages, or eliminating factors. So these are some things that your resume might have that will automatically eliminate you from, moving forward in the stage. So for example, we have no target or a generic resume. So I always tell people that there is no such thing as having a generic resume. Your resume needs to be targeted towards the specific job that you're applying to, okay? No spelling errors or typos, inappropriate buzzwords, and industry jargon. So it's good to, word your resume in a way that sets you apart from other candidates, but you don't want to go over the top, right? Acronyms such as DIY, so do it yourself, or OTC, over the counter, or abbreviations such as IE, so example, approximately, that should say etc. So ETC, min for minutes or minimum, and NO for number. Like, don't use those types of abbreviations on your resume. Wordiness and multiple pages. So your resume typically should only be 2 pages in length. I've heard employers tell me specifically that, they were actually offended by candidates sending them like a 3 or 4 page resume, as if, they really wanted to have to read through that many pages of someone's experience. In some industries, it's acceptable, it's common, but there are others where they don't need to see that much information. They want to see your specific skills and qualifications that you have to offer right up front. And then they'll get the rest of that information from you in an interview if you've enticed them enough. Multiple fonts. So don't make, your resume overly creative where, there's too much going on. Meaningless objectives. So those are the objectives that don't really have much of a target, but they say to acquire a full-time or part-time position within your organization where I can contribute my skills and attributes towards the company's growth. Like that, it's considered word fluff, and the employer doesn't get any value from that. Poor readability. So if your font is way too small or your words are all bunched together, lack of white space, sloppy and disorganized presentation, gimmicks like photos or bright paper. So those are all common eliminating factors. Now we'll talk about the different sections of the resume. And I'll say this, like not all resumes will include every single one of these sections. This is just to let you know the different types of sections that you can include on your resume. There are ones that, all resumes will include as well. So I'll go through them. So the objective, and you want that to be a clear and specific objective. So letting the employer know what position you're applying to without them having to guess. The introduction, and that can come in the form of a professional profile, summary of qualifications, highlights of qualifications, a combination of a profile summary and a list of your qualifications. I've seen all of them and they're all acceptable. Key competencies, so that's like a really neat way of displaying your keywords or buzzwords. So if your resume is going through like a scanner, an applicant tracking system scanner, it's really good to include that section that highlights your key competencies, and you'll include like technical skills or specific training or industry specific knowledge in that area. And usually it's no more than 2 words, 2, 3 at the most words in that type of area per skill, right? Then you'll have an education section. You want to put your program of study and the year of graduation. I've often seen people put the date they started and the date that they graduated, but it's really not necessary unless you did not complete the program. In which case you have to determine whether or not it's a value add to include that education, because if you didn't complete it and it's not also relevant to the job you're applying to, maybe then you don't want to include it. But if you have graduated, only put the graduation year. The institution, you can include your GPA in that section as well. And I usually say if your GPA is above 80, then it is good to include that. And then courses of interest. So not your entire full course list, but the specific courses that you've taken that are relevant to the job you're applying to. Then of course, all resumes will include, education, work history, will include an introduction and an objective. But then there's also a professional development section where if you've done like a field placement, or if you've done any in-service training or specialized training, usually on the job, or any major projects in school, things like that, anything that can demonstrate your relevant work experience in the field. You can also include a professional development section that highlights that specific experience. You can include you can include your volunteer experience. And once again, I cannot stress enough that this should be relevant. So for example, if you're going for a job that requires people-facing, customer service skills, things like that, highlighting that you have volunteer experience in like, a hospital or somewhere where you have had to do similar work, like use your customer service skills, then definitely include it. However, if it's like a technical job, more hands-on, like a trade where that might not be as, like customer service skills might not be as necessary. And I mean, they always are in most environments, but I'm just using this as an example. Maybe putting that, you volunteered as a babysitter or at a nursing home might not be as valuable, right? And then moving on to certification and training, you can always include this section if you're displaying relevant certification and training, recognitions, awards, achievements, so that those can be, bursaries, scholarships. Now, I normally encourage people to include additional sections on their resume if they have limited work experience, and also if your resume is bleeding over to like a 2.5 page or sorry, not 2.5, a page and a half or a page and a quarter resume, because you never want to give that to an employer. Your resume should always be at least a page and 3/4 or 2 full pages at best. A page and a quarter is just not, or a page and a half is not as appealing to an employer. So if you find that you're running into that issue, include these additional sections. Oh, the last one was quotes and comments, which I will discuss later on in the presentation, but that there's also another very creative way of embedding those into the resume as well. Now we're going to go on to preferable fonts. So your font size should be no smaller than 11 and no larger than 12. For your name title, like where you put your actual name on the resume, you can go up to 20, 24. So you can definitely make that font size bigger so that it stands out more. But for the content in your resume, you definitely do not want to go over 12 or under 11. And the preferred fonts are either sans serif fonts, which include the list that you see there. So Arial, Calibri, Frank. So I won't read through all of them for the sake of time, but as Lindsay mentioned, the slide deck will be provided to each of you to use as a reference. But sans serif fonts have straight lines and good readability. And the serif fonts tend to have small embellishments at the ends of the letters. And that is said to add more emphasis to the letters and make for better visibility. So moving on to the types of resumes. So there are three most common types of resumes. So first is the reverse chronological, then we have functional, and we also have combination resumes. So reverse chronological resumes are used when you have consistent work history without many gaps in your work history. And usually used when you're making a lateral or advanced move within your work industry. So, you're moving to another position that is similar to the one you already have, or you're looking to, get a higher position than the one that you have, but all within that same industry. It would be good to use a reverse chronological. Now, a functional resume is used when you do have several gaps, like there's been periods of time when you haven't been working, or perhaps you've only worked in a particular job for a shorter period of time consistently throughout your work history. So it's good to use a functional resume when you're doing that, or when you're switching to work in a brand new industry that you don't have much work experience in. So the functional resume will highlight your transferable skills that you do have that are relevant to the job that you're applying to. And it takes away the emphasis from the actual work history that you have. A combination resume is used for when you have recent experience that is directly related to the position you are applying for, but you also have past experience from maybe a different industry that also complements the current role that you're applying to. So for example, you have several years of managerial experience in retail, and you're applying for a similar kind of leadership role, but in a different industry. So it kind of showcases, it's also a good way of showcasing your progression over your work history, and the fact that you have been given promotions based on your performance and things like that. So that's a really great way of showcasing that type of experience, as well as customer service. So if you're moving towards an industry that is very much so like a people-facing or human services type role, and you have a lot of customer service experience, including having a section that focuses on your relevant knowledge and skills. So such as, knowledge in, say, in healthcare practices. You use that in combination with your work history working as a customer service representative. And I'll show you concrete examples of this so it makes more sense. So this is an example of a chronological resume. And I'll just use my laser point here. So as you can see, the dates, it's a consistent work history. There's not many gaps, aside from, a small gap here, which, could be explained by, schooling or whatever. And then, so like I said, yeah, so it shows consistent work history throughout. And it starts off with an introduction, a paragraph, and then it moves directly into work history. You'll notice that this person also has relevant work experience to the position that they're applying to. Therefore, in this scenario, their work history trumps their education, so education is pushed towards the bottom. Now, for this resume, this is for an individual who is transitioning into a career as a human resource assistant or in the human resources field. But most of their work history, although it's consistent work history, it's in a different industry. So they've worked primarily in health, as a recreational therapist. However, if this individual is applying for a job and they haven't graduated, so I wasn't really able to do like the relevant experience and skills. But if they're applying for a job in a long-term care or healthcare environment, then it is beneficial for them to include their work history in similar types of environments, okay? Now, another example of that same resume is a functional type style resume. So this here is if this individual were to apply for a human resources assistant position in just like any HR type company, so not specific to like healthcare. This is a good way of highlighting their transferable skills. And so what I've done is I've tried to minimize the words that are specific to long-term care or healthcare as much as possible and focus primarily on those transferable skills that would add value to, say, a human resources assistant position. And as you can see, the work history, rather than giving detailed examples of everything this person has done at each of those jobs, I've listed them. So they're listed. And so more emphasis is placed on their introduction paragraph, their education, and their relevant experience and skills. Here's another example of a functional style resume. So once again, this is a new graduate where most of their work experience has been unrelated to the automotive industry, okay? And so we're highlighting what transferable skills, and these skills would have been developed through completing this motive power technician program. It would have been gained, yeah, some transferable skills might have come from, line dealing with customers. So there might be a line in there that says experience welcoming and product information. So that is a tie-in to something that this person might have to do as an automotive service technician, right? Okay, so here's an example of a combination resume. And so this person, part of the reason why this became a combination resume is because there was no really effective way of having a one-page resume. And so it was either going to be a page and a half or a full page. And so in order to make this, a full 2-page resume, we decided to elaborate more on their work history, which is good work history because it does show progression and advancements throughout their career. And they've stayed within the same industry throughout their employment. And so that shows commitment and dedication, right? So those are all really great qualities that I believe the employer would like to see. And so, so that's a good example of a combination. Another example of a combination resume is here. And there's 2 combinations. So this candidate has decided to put the professional profile summary, as well as a highlights of qualification summary. And the reason why this is a combination resume is because they've included their professional development. So this is like their placement experience, so field placement experience. And then they've also included their work history with detailed example of their work. Now, another interesting thing about this individual is that they have out-of-country experience. And so it adds value to also to highlight their out-of-country experience because it's directly related to the position that they're applying to. As you can see, it's teaching experience. But also it shows current Canadian work experience, which shows the employer that this individual also has that paid work experience in the Canadian labor market. Now let's discuss value proposition. So value proposition is what valuable skills, knowledge, and experience you bring to the company. So like I said, your resume is an effective marketing tool. The employer is looking to see what you have to offer them, right? And so I use this example to kind of get us thinking about what that means, like what is value? So let's pretend that Jane is applying for an accounting position, but her only work experience is 5 years of babysitting. So an incorrect way of demonstrating value would be Jane recently graduated from the business accounting program at Mohawk College and highlights her 5 years of babysitting experience on her resume. Obviously, the employer would not be able to draw value for their accounting position from that babysitting experience unless Jane highlights the transferable skills in that experience. So the correct way of Jane demonstrating her value proposition would be, Jane recently graduated from the business accounting program at Mohawk and highlights her learning outcomes, knowledge and skills gained from the program, as well as planning and scheduling experience she gained from previous employment, such as babysitting, okay? So just to elaborate more on the value proposition, and so we go back to the buying motivators. So according to Career Professionals of Canada, there are 3 main components of a good value proposition. And those include buying motivators, supporting qualifications, and added value. So buying motivators are not the duties that aren't connected to the employer's needs. And they're not a statement about the candidate, such as, I am looking to grow within your company. Those are not buying motivators for the employer. Buying motivators are terms that respond to the needs of the company, such as drive revenue, improving processes, directing teams. And this requires a certain amount of research and analysis. So you'd need to research and analyze the company to determine what would benefit the company, or what benefits the company poses to receive by hiring you or filling the position on a whole. And then it's your job to determine what qualities you have to fulfill the company's needs and how to demonstrate that to them. And that is by using terms such as drive revenue, improve processes, and direct teams, right? Based on what the company's needs are. Your supporting qualifications would include like education and training, and added value will be related experience, okay? Potential challenges for your value proposition will be becoming comfortable with eliminating irrelevant information. So even though it might look and sound good on paper and you're really proud of your achievement, there's some experience, some training, some things that you have that aren't necessarily relevant, and therefore you may have to eliminate it from the resume. So moving on to more about a value proposition. So I'll talk about, a key factor in writing an effective resume is to get comfortable with, like I said, eliminating or minimizing irrelevant information and only using examples that employers will see as valuable. So this could mean eliminating education, training, and work experiences if needed. So things that you should include on the resume include education and experience related to the position that you're applying to, specific skills, technical knowledge that will allow you to perform the duties of the job, concrete examples of your skills rather than lists. And I'll go through what that looks like. Employers don't want to see a grocery list of your skills. Transferable knowledge and skills that you gained from previous employment. And you do not want to include experience that goes beyond 15 years ago. And an exception to that rule is if 20 years ago you had a job that was directly related to the position that you're applying to now. You don't want to include irrelevant information, even if it sounds or looks good on paper. or details about previous jobs or volunteer work that are not related to the position that you're applying to. So next, we'll talk about your job posting analysis. So before starting the resume, you first need to conduct, of course, a job search, and you need to know what job you're applying for, okay? Then once you've found a job posting that looks like, you know, it's a good one to apply to, you feel that you have the necessary background to apply to that job, then you want to do a job posting analysis to determine, one, if you have the necessary qualifications for the job, and two, you'll get a lot of details about what should be on your resume by analyzing the job posting, right? Because the resume is almost like a response to the job posting, right? Like you're writing a letter of response. So you want to make sure that you're including information on there that the employer has directly asked for. So this, what you're seeing on this page, was taken from a cardiovascular technician job posting for cardio health. And this section here that is on this slide is the actual qualification section or requirements section. So each job posting will include like a summary of what the job duties are or what the responsibilities will look like. So those are, you know, what the job will look like if you are hired. And then below that or above that, somewhere in that document, you'll also see what qualifications you need in order to fulfill the position. Okay, and so normally when employers are doing that quick, you know, 7-second scan, they're going to look for keywords and key skills that you have that right away tell them, okay, this person has the minimum requirements that we're looking for, so maybe I can continue reading. So you want to make sure that you're including those skills right up top in that introductory paragraph. But before you get to that stage, I like to use this highlighter method, and it's a green and yellow highlighter method. And so in green highlighter, I would want you to go through each of the skills and qualifications that you already have, okay? And in yellow highlighter, you want to go through and highlight the ones that you don't yet have. Now, it's important to also analyze this and, you know, be honest with yourself. And if you find that you've highlighted mostly yellow, then it's a time maybe to ask yourself, is it realistic for me to apply to this position, right? Based on the qualifications that I don't yet have, would it be realistic to apply to this job? If you find that the majority of your skills are green, and the ones that are highlighted in yellow are saying it would be an asset, it's not a mandatory requirement, or if you still feel fairly confident that your green skills override the yellow skills, because those are skills that you can demonstrate to the employer that, you know, you're willing to acquire or you're passionate about learning or developing your skills in, then definitely go ahead and apply to the job. Now moving on to the objective statement. So as I mentioned to you, employers, they don't like the long-winded objective statements anymore. They want more concrete, specific information about the position that you're applying to and what you have to offer. So we'll go through example number 1. So pursuing a position as a cardiovascular technologist where I can apply my training and skills gained through my education. So this example is considered word fluff for the employer. And the only valuable information in that statement is cardiovascular technologist, because that tells the employer exactly what position that individual is applying to. So that's an example of what not to do. Now, the second example is seeking the cardiovascular technologist position with St. Joseph's Hospital, where I may apply my excellent training in performing cardiovascular procedures and tests and become an effective member of the healthcare team. So once again, you know, it's long-winded, there's very wordy, and the example tells the employer more about what the candidate is looking to receive from them rather than what the candidate actually has to offer to the position. So the best example of what to do for your objective statement is just restate the title of the position. So they're hiring a cardiovascular technologist. So whatever the position title is, that's what you want to state as your objective. Oftentimes what people will do is include a tagline. So if you want to, set yourself apart and give a little more information about what you have to offer, you can include a tagline, or you can, such as this one, it says, a health industry professional dedicated to quality, ethical, and safe work practices. And that would literally be a line that goes right underneath the title of the position, okay? Another way of doing this is by using, buzzwords, keywords, and you can literally take this line, so where it says health and safety, quality care, ethical practice, that can also, that's a part of your branding, right? That becomes a part of your branding, and you put that right underneath the position title as well, okay? So it's either or, you don't need to include both, but those are other ways of kind of giving a little, setting yourself apart a little bit more and creating a brand for yourself. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the qualification summary. So that's like the introductory paragraph. And this talks about optimizing your statements. So I mentioned to you that employers do not like a grocery list of your skills. They want concrete examples of how you have those skills. So I won't read through all of these, but I'll let you know that these points were taken from a resume of someone who is applying for a supply chain position, right? And so what I've done is I've written each example, but I've also optimized those statements to add more value. So we're qualifying it and we're quantifying it by giving more concrete examples that the employer will be able to kind of see as valuable. Like, oh, okay, so this kind of explains to me why this person believes they have strong verbal and written communication skills. So we'll start off with that one, and I'll go through maybe two that are on this list. So strong verbal and written communication skills, which is a common one that employers see written on resumes, but it doesn't give them enough information. Anyone can write that statement. So how do you set yourself apart? So here's an example. So strong verbal and written communication skills with verifiable experience collaborating and communicating within a team environment to improve processes and service delivery. So that statement is for someone who, say, probably doesn't really have any customer service experience. So it's important to know that your statement needs to include examples. It needs to include buying motivator terms and also creative writing. So that is what a resume is. It's a combination of all those things. And so once again, I'll read that example and then I'll move on to another example using someone who, say, does have customer service experience. So once again, a better way of stating that you have strong verbal and written communication skills is by saying strong verbal and written communication skills with verifiable experience collaborating and communicating within a team environment to improve processes and service delivery. An example of that same statement, if this person has customer service experience or call center, whatever, would be verifiable experience responding to up to 40+ telephone inquiries daily, clearly and accurately provide information, handle complaints with tact and courtesy, and succinctly record and document interactions. Okay, that gives the employer more emphasis, more information about how this person is able to demonstrate those skills, okay? And once again, you'll have this slide so you can go through them and kind of use it as a reference. So these are, next I'll go through examples of what these qualification summaries might look like. So this is an example of when a person is using like more of a paragraph, a professional profile. And then they've also included a key competencies section below that. And what I've done is I've highlighted some of the information in that profile that will allude to more of the specific concrete skills and technical knowledge that the person has down in the key competencies section. So you don't want this profile summary to be too long, right? Because then that's kind of too much for the employer to read all at a glance. But you want this right here breaks down the information a little bit more so that, you know, say the employer is doing a quick skim and they're not seeing enough they don't really want to, read through all of this to kind of find out, okay, what are this person's skills, right? They see this section below and that highlights to them, okay, they have Revit, AutoCAD, 2D and 3D models. Like those are the specific technical skills that the employer might want to see that this person has, okay? Now moving on to more of a categorical summary. So basically the job posting specified certain areas of knowledge and skills that they wanted the ideal candidate to have. And so the most effective way of demonstrating that to the employer was to actually list those same categories on this introductory summary here. So, you can see that the person has included well, you don't see the job posting, but these categories were taken directly from the job posting. Experience, so they're looking for experience, forward thinking and creative virtual events project manager. And then the person was able to demonstrate their experience and skills in that area. Same thing with technical knowledge. Now, rather than listing all of the technical skills here, because they, as you can see, they have several, it was more effective to kind of list them in a separate category. So this is similar to the key strengths and key competencies section that you'd see on some of the other resumes as well, okay? And then this is more of a traditional way of doing your qualification summary. Often you'll see this section titled Highlights of Qualifications, where the applicant simply puts in bullet points each of the qualifications that they bring to the position. You still want to make these experience-based kind of, you don't want to be listing the grocery list of skills that you have. So most of them should be experience-based examples, concrete examples of why you have the skills. You're just listing them in a different format rather than putting them in a paragraph, or yes, the smaller paragraphs is all. Okay, now I want to show you what this looks like in action. So this is a job posting that was taken from Linwood Charlton Center for a child and youth worker position. And I really like this example because on the job posting itself, under the qualification summary, it gave each of these different categories of skills and qualifications that they're looking for. So you can see I've highlighted each category. This makes it super easy when you need to translate this over to the resume, because you know exactly what skills the employer is looking for you to highlight on your resume. And so you can literally use these headers on your resume because whatever you put below or beside those headers is going to be unique to you, right? And you're demonstrating how you have skills in each of these categories or those areas, okay? So this is what it looks like in action. And I didn't put all of the different points on here because that would take a lot of time. But just to kind of give you an example. So here you have the objective, which is child and youth worker. So that is the exact title of the position they're applying for. This person has included a tagline which says experienced child and youth worker professional, knowledgeable of child and youth mental health and developmental disabilities. And if you go back to the job posting, you can see that right here. They're looking for someone with experience and they're looking for someone with knowledge in that same exact area. Okay, so you put that right up at the top and that it's kind of like a check mark system. Okay, check, I've taken care of that. Then you go on to the clinical skills, which, the years of experience that you can put exactly, it's put, this person has put that they have the diploma, all of their certification and training in the area, years of experience, and then moving on to the categories now, clinical skills. So now this person can demonstrate what clinical skills and experience they have in that area, crisis management. And sometimes if you don't exactly have like the hands-on experience dealing with certain situations, you can discuss your training and experience. Like if you got an outstanding mark in that particular subject, you can put that on the resume as well, okay? Now moving on to the education section. This is a general example of what your education might look like, your education section might look like. As you can see, this person included their GPA. They had a 90% GPA, courses of interest. So based on the position that they were applying to, these were the primary courses that added the most value. So if you're a recent graduate, I showed you the example earlier. If you're a recent graduate, you can put your education right on the front page of your resume. And if you graduated more than 2 years ago and have 2 years of relevant work experience, I would say work experience should come before your education. So it all depends on, you know, what adds the most value, right? If you have current relevant work experience, include that before the education, right? Unless it's like practicum experience, then, you know, put your education before, because that's not paid work experience. Do not list more than 3 post-secondary degrees diplomas on the front page, unless they're all showing like a progression. So you started off with, say, a diploma, then moved to a bachelor, then a master's kind of thing. It's okay to show that progression. But of course, you don't want to have like a page full of education. If you're finding that you have more than, I'd say 3 at most, designations, then include a separate section, possibly on the second page of your resume, that says other education and training. Okay. And now moving on to your work history. So every resume will have something, well, if you don't have work history, you might not have it, but most resumes should. So I talked to you a little bit about this already, about strengthening your statements, but this is more so geared towards strengthening your accomplishment statements. So rather than just listing things that you've done, like packed bags, processed purchases, or, you know, removed garbage, whatever it might be, you want to elaborate more on each of the different job duties that you held and different experiences that you've had. And the best thing to do is try to quantify those statements. And so I'll kind of show you a flow chart of what that might look like. So here's one that starts off with answer phones, right? That's very, that's vague. You know, it doesn't give the employer enough information, because, and the reality is you did a lot more than just answer the phone, right? You had to speak to someone on the other end. You might have answered like a lot of phone calls, which shows your ability to kind of, you know, maybe multitask or work at a fast pace or keep your momentum up. Like there's different skills that you had to use while you're answering phones, and you definitely don't want to shortcut yourself by not stating that to the employer. So a better example of that would be exemplify effective communication and customer service skills while responding to a high volume of telephone calls. So that's good, but I think that could even be better, right? That could be an even stronger statement by quantifying it a little bit. So a better example of that would be respond to 50+ telephone inquiries daily and deliver exceptional customer service, resulting in customer satisfaction, right? So you're showing that this statement is becoming more of an accomplishment. It's showing the employer what you have done or what you're capable of doing. And then the best version of that statement would be respond to 50+ telephone inquiries daily and deliver exceptional customer service, resulting in improved customer satisfaction and exceeding call quality targets by 25% in the last 6 months. Okay. So whenever possible, it's always good to convert your experience statements into accomplishment statements. And you do that by quantifying it, adding numbers, percentages, and timeframes. Okay. So a little bit more about accomplishment statements. And so we use this, if anyone has ever had a chance to do the Future Ready Premium program, you would have learned this technique for developing your accomplishment statements. And so it kind of provides you with 3 columns, 3 categories to offer like a format for that statement, right? So you start off with an action verb. So actually, sorry, before you do that, you want to state your accomplishment. So your accomplishment might be received an award for Employee of the Month, which I've heard a lot, right? But you can offer more information about that. Like ask yourself, why did you receive that award? And that will help you a little bit more to elaborate. So you received that reward because you showed up on time for every shift. You helped in training new staff and you delivered excellent customer service. Okay, so that's giving more of a description around, you know, why you were able to accomplish that award. So to help you kind of, you know, begin to format that statement, you start off with an action verb. So in this case, we're using the word modeled. So you modeled, and the description would be good work ethic, strong leadership, and exemplary customer service. And as a result, received an award for Employee of the Month. And so what that translates into is modeled good work ethic, strong leadership, and exemplary customer service while working on a busy 5-person team, and received an award for Employee of the Month after 4 months of employment. So we've also quantified that statement to add more value. So you're saying that, you know, this was a team out of 5 people, and in a busy work environment, I was selected to be Employee of the Month. And you're also saying that you did that within just 4 months of working there, right? So it shows a lot about your value as an employee. Okay, so other areas that you can draw on to kind of help to develop your experience statements, and once again, those are the statements that come underneath like each of your different work experiences. So say, you know, you're having a difficult time coming up with your accomplishment statements. Here's a really great resource. I feel like it, sorry. Yeah, I'm getting there, sorry. Okay, so here's a really great resource and something that you can draw on to help you to elaborate. So if you Google whatever the occupation is, so you can Google sales associate, not code, literally, sales associate, not code. And then that will take you to a Statistics Canada page that will give you a list of what the main duties for that particular occupation are or is. And you can actually use this to kind of elaborate on your experience statements. So that's something that I use often because I find that it really helps to kind of elaborate on some of the things that you might have done at a particular job and you don't know how to explain it. Okay, so to talk about what your relevant experience and skills might look like, say on a functional resume. So rather than listing each of your experience statements underneath in each individual job, you're putting it in a category all by itself, and you're highlighting whatever transferable skills or specific industry specific knowledge and experience you have, okay? And you're listing it in this format. Okay, so this is another way to kind of help you to know what skills and points to include in both of those sections. Like I mentioned to you, most job postings will have a responsibilities or job duties section, and we'll have a qualification section. So if you use the responsibilities section on the resume, you can kind of do like a cross-reference kind of thing and look for, okay, these are the duties that I'll need to fulfill at this new job. So how can I show that I've done similar things or the same things at my previous jobs? And that kind of helps you too to know what direction to go in when you're thinking of, you know, what examples should I provide? Because not all of the things that you did at your previous jobs are relevant to the job that you're applying to. You definitely don't want to use irrelevant examples of things that you won't even need to be able to do at this new job, right? You want to highlight the things primarily that you know are related to this new position, okay? And get comfortable with eliminating, even if you were supervising staff or whatever it might be, if it's totally irrelevant to the job you're applying to, even if it sounds good, you might need to take it out, okay? Or find a creative way of stating it so that it's more of a value add to the company you're applying for. And I hope that makes sense. So another great tool to use when you're looking for more points to include about the knowledge you have, and this is specific to applicants who don't have a lot of work experience. So new graduates, people who haven't, say, worked in their field yet, I always like to refer to this. So this is on the Mohawk College website. And if you look up the website for your particular program, all of them will kind of look like this. They will have this bar right here. And on that bar is a learning outcome section, okay? So by selecting that section and clicking on review the program learning outcomes for whatever the program might be, it will generate a list of learning outcomes. And these, and this list was actually a lot longer. I shortened it. But it will generate a list of experience and abilities every graduate will have had to acquire before they can graduate from this program. So the program will have touched on each of those different learning areas and provided the graduate with all of those skills that are listed in that section. Those are your learning outcomes. And so this is a great section. These are great points to include under that relevant experience and skills tab, right? It helps you to elaborate more on the knowledge that and the skills and experience you will have gained just by completing your program at Mohawk College, okay? Another thing that we talked about earlier today too is selecting your programs of studies and then clicking on each of the different programs that you've, courses that you've taken. And then under each course, it gives you a little write-up about all of the topics that you'll cover, different learning that you'll cover in that particular course. And that might help to jog your memory. Oh yeah, I did learn how to do that. And those become more transferable skills and knowledge, right? And just to highlight, like it's already written in a way that you can include right on the resume, because it's stated in a way that it's professional and it speaks directly to that particular knowledge and skill. Now we'll talk about some branding and design elements that you can include on your resume. And for everyone, it might look a bit differently. So I'll try and quickly go through this. But for your header, I like to use charts a lot. So I'll insert charts and I will eliminate the lines, but you can insert the chart and include your information. It keeps everything nicely aligned for you. I also like to encourage people to use the branding, like the colors of the employer. So if the employer uses blue, if that's like a part of their branding, you can mimic that in some areas to show them that you're committed to their brand. So that's one thing you can do. Also, I like to embed links to certain information. So you might embed a link to your e-portfolio, to your LinkedIn, or to like a PDF portfolio that you might have. I've done that as well. So those are really neat ways of kind of giving the employer more information about you. You can include borders around, some of your headers, nice embellishment, things to make it look nice. And like I said, you can insert these charts. So I've inserted this chart here for education, right? And so as you can see in the first column here, we're including the degree or diploma title, the institution, and then second column, we're putting your graduation year right up at the top, okay? And once I eliminate the lines, it looks like this, if you can see this point here. And that's how it will appear on your resume. And it just makes everything nicely aligned and you don't have to worry about using the space bar to align things. And you can see here, I used it again for like a work example. And also if you have a functional resume where you're listing your experience and the employers you've worked for, again, you can insert a 3-column chart it helps you to align all the information nicely, okay? And another thing that I've included here, which I mentioned that I would talk about, is this here is a quote. So this was taken, this quote was taken directly from a professor to a student. And it was from a recommendation letter that the professor had written for that student. And so I just took a line out of that letter and placed it right underneath their education, just to add, you know, more information. It's a unique way of demonstrating how you can be set apart from other candidates, right? And that you're putting a reference directly into the resume, and this is someone else's words. It's not anything that you're making up. It's taken directly out of that letter, and you can find creative ways of putting that. Sometimes it's a neat way of filling space if you know you're not quite at that 3-page mark. So yeah, so that's just another fancy thing to consider. Now moving on to cover letter, and so some quick things to go over here in the cover letter. You want to make sure that you have, you know, 2 spaces from the date to, and you want to include the department and address of the company that you're applying to. 2 spaces later, you're going to include what it's regarding. So what the letter is regarding. So you put re, and then you include the title of the position that you're applying for. And then 2 spaces after that, you're including, you're addressing the letter. So you're saying, dear, usually you put hiring manager to be on the safe side. You don't want to put sir or madam to avoid, you know, gender issues there. So you just put hiring manager, or if you know the specific person who you're addressing the letter to, you can just put their name, okay? The first paragraph, and this was taken from a friend of mine now, but a colleague of mine, Sally Simpson. So she used to be one of our career coaches, and I sat in on her presentation, and she said something that just gravitated with me, it stuck with me, and I think it's an excellent way of starting a cover letter. And so you started off, and she said, sorry, if you want someone to be interested in you, first you have to show them that you are interested in them. And so you start with a paragraph summarizing the company's mission, values, or you know what the company does, kind of thing, what they who they service, even their clientele. And then you state how that intersects with your values and your mission, right? And I'll show you what this looks like in action. And then you move to a second paragraph, which gives the reader a little bit of information about yourself, more of a sentimental kind of paragraph about yourself and your career interests. And then you move into your third paragraph, which I've put generically. It is with sincere interest that I submit my resume for the title of position, and some key skills and qualifications I bring to the role include, and then you're listing 3 or 4 bullet points. And usually you want those bullet points to target whatever the qualification section says on the job posting. So you're responding to that immediately. So, you know, you're looking for someone who has these 4 or 5 skills. This is how I can demonstrate that I have what you're looking for. And you include those in those bullet points there. And then you can close it off by saying it would be an absolute honor to represent your company and the great works you are doing. I sincerely hope to meet with you for an interview, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, and that can be customized any way you choose, but that's just an example of how you can write it. So let's see another example. So this I've included, and I know there's not very good readability because it's a lot. I've included both the cover letter and the resume, only to show you that your cover letter and resume should match in terms of branding. It shouldn't look like 2 completely different people who are applying to the same position, right? It's all the same person, it's all the same package, and therefore it should be branded the exact same. So as you can see here, the cover letter has the same colors and the same exact header as the resume, okay? Now moving in more in depth on this example, you can see here the date, the department, the address, the title of the position, who they're addressing. And then we can read this together. It says, Healthcare and Municipal Employees Credit Union is a thriving financial institution that offers an impressive variety of financial solutions to your members. I am intrigued by your 85-year history and overall commitment to excellence in service delivery and genuine care for your members. I too am passionate about providing quality service to customers, and I take pride in the small details that make a big impact of customer experience. My accounting background has made me a natural problem solver who can quickly detect issues and find creative solutions. And then it moves in. As a current student enrolled in the business accounting program at Mohawk College and with over 4 years of sales and customer service experience, I submit my resume with confidence to the above mentioned member services representative summer student position. And then it goes into some key skills and qualifications that I bring to the role include these, and those were based on what the job posting was kind of asking for. I included another example that has more of a sentimental second paragraph. So this says the Women's Services Department of Good Shepherd's supports countless women and children facing critical situations. Your organization is dedicated to improving lives and supporting people in need. This is where our values intersect. Since the beginning of my career, I have dedicated my life to working towards the betterment of others, helping people to restore their functioning and reach their fullest potential, both physically and mentally. As a woman and a mother, I understand the unique vulnerabilities of women and children and stand by the anti-oppressive frameworks that supports women's empowerment and strengthens independence. I also value the legislation that protects children and youth from endangerment and builds capacity for bright futures. And then it moves on. It is with great interest that I submit my resume for the case manager position with Good Shepherd's Women's Services Department. As a recent graduate, as a recent social service worker, diploma graduate, some of the key skills and qualifications I bring to this role include the following. Once again, their response to this. So this was very much so like a case manager role. As you can see, it's a case manager role. And so they were able to show examples of their case management experience and working in that type of case management team and environment. Okay, so you'll have this slide to use as a guide. But and then lastly, we'll talk about references. The reference page is a separate document, so you do not need to include any references on your resume. And your reference should also include the similar branding. So the same type of header and colors and things, you want to definitely use that as well. You want to ask each person listed on your reference page if it's okay to use them, of course, as a reference, and make sure their information is all spelled correctly. And you want to ask them if they'll give you a good reference, because some people might say, oh yeah, I'll give you a reference, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be a good reference. So you want to verify that. I believe that's all the information I had to cover. Sorry if I've gone over time. It is a lot of information, but I'm hoping that it was all very valuable.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sherry. That was a fantastic presentation. I learned so much. I'm quite intrigued by the tagline statements and the way that you recommend formatting and branding. That was fantastic. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Sherry, for putting this presentation together. And then just a reminder, alumni hosts many events throughout the year, such as trivia nights, personal development, networking events, workshops. So keep an eye on our website. So it's mohawkcollege.ca/alumni events, or follow us on social media. And thank you everyone for joining us. And I hope you join us for future events.